And welcome to the Barry Foster Show, now on YouTube, originating from the Ridge Florida studios in the city of Charm, beautiful downtown Avon Park. I'd like to remind you, if you have any thoughts, ideas, or suggestions for the program, people you'd like us to talk to, subjects you'd like us to broach, just put it in the comments below. Or if you'd like to become a sponsor, send us an email at thebarryfostershow@gmail.com, and we'll be glad to send you a rate card. A salesman will call. And please check out the YouTube page right here at the Barry Foster Show, as we try to put up something each and every weekday. Subscribe to our YouTube page, like and subscribe, please, and join our pages at the Barry Foster Show on Facebook and Instagram. That would be very helpful. John Larson in the studios this morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, John. And it appears that the shutdown is all but over. That that shows. I think that. Donald Trump leading the way, being the point of the spear, saying, we're just not going to give these people anything that they're asking for, period. They stretched this shutdown out over the time of the elections, because they kept trying to blame the Republicans. They kept trying to blame Trump. It did not stick the way it has stuck in the past. They started calling it the Shumer Shutdown. And finally now, they're saying that I saw that apparently they're claiming the Democrats won, but the Democrats didn't get anything they were asking for. That the only thing I think the Republicans agreed to do was to talk about some of those things once the continuing resolution, which keeps the government running, I think, through January. Once they got passed, then we'll agree to talk about that, but they didn't have any reasonable expectation they were going to do any of them.
Well, this whole fiasco is mainly about who gets health care. And by and large, the Democrats, they can say what they want. We know what they do. They shuffle money off to these various states like California, New York, Illinois, and with the understanding that, this is not going to go towards illegals, but guess what? They provide illegals with health care.
A state does that. We don't. We don't do that, but the state does it.
California, New York.
We underwrite the state, but we can't help what they do with the money.
Right. And so finally, after I don't know how many years, the Republicans caught on to that little scheme, and that's what caused this stoppage at this point. But the funny part of it is, this is the longest shutdown ever of the American. The second longest shutdown was when Trump was in the first time.
This was 40 days.
Isn't it amazing that this only happens when Trump is in office?
When the Republicans shut down government to get what they wanted, there's a very famous clip of Barack Obama going nuts about how immoral it was to shut down the government. And these Democrats were saying, well, we need this for leverage. I mean, and they were using the SNAP benefits and the military not getting their pay for their leverage for their political negotiations. And I don't think that's lost. I don't necessarily think the Republicans got wise to it. I think that enough rhinos got voted out and enough American First candidates came in that with Donald Trump to show the spine, and I've just never been quite so amazed at how much power a president actually has, that with him to show the spine, say, I'm not signing any of that, it gave them plenty of cover to say, well, we're not going to vote for it either.
It was kind of amazing. I don't know if you saw this from yesterday. Trump put out I call it a tweet. He puts it out on Truth Social. But the air traffic controllers, which is really, my daughter is concerned about whether she's going to get to fly home tomorrow.
Absolutely.
She had the same frustration whether she could get down here. Luckily, they did. But what he came out and said yesterday was, all the air traffic controllers that have not come to work, you're fired. All the ones that have stuck with us and kept the place going, you're going to get a $10,000 bonus.
I saw that, yes.
So it'll be interesting to see if he does that. But and go back, and they played a film clip of Ronald Reagan.
Yes.
When the air traffic controllers went on strike, and he said, you've got 24 hours, you either come back to work or you're fired. Those that didn't come back were all fired. Okay? He did.
It stuck.
It stuck. Yes, it did. And I think that, Trump will do the same thing. And I think this is, this is going to be a lesson learned. You could have worked. Yes. They get their money back. Oh my God, they get their money back. They get their back pay, all of it, okay? And so on. I'm very frustrated that the military hasn't been paid. Very frustrated over that. You've asked these guys all around the world, okay, to put their life on the line because things happen when the least expected to happen, something's going to blow up and some of our servicemen pay the price. And so these folks are serving, okay, and not getting paid. That is, to me, that is outlandish and just unfathomable that you could do that to people that you've said, all right, take this gun and go protect us over there somewhere. And they're doing that without being paid. And you're okay with that? No, this is not right.
Well, I think it was Rahm Emanuel who said, never let a good crisis go to waste. And I think that Donald Trump heard that and said, you know what, man, just because you disagree with somebody politically doesn't mean they don't have good ideas. And he said, you know what, that might be true. And so when the government shutdown started, he said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to find the non-essential employees and we're going to let them go. And he began terminating employees that weren't necessarily that much of that much great use to the government. Then he said, you know what else? There are a bunch of programs that we're doing that are not essential. And so we're going to take, in order to save money, let's begin to do those. And they were largely Democrat programs, growing the government. We talked about that yesterday. We talked about it, and it even happens here locally, but we'll get to that. At any rate, he said, well, we're going to start to do away with these Democrat programs. And they started going away. Mm-hmm. And the Democrats said, they'll weather the storm, we'll get them back. And then when the SNAP crisis came, he said, you know what? Let's find out how many of these people actually are entitled to SNAP programs. And he took $750,000 of those off the rolls. And there probably would be more if he had the time. So they were able to use this shutdown to begin to pare back government and make government more efficient. Donald Trump, I'll say it again, I don't think he's a conservative. He's a businessman. Mm-hmm. He knows what the cost of doing business is, and he wants to make sure things run efficiently. So he was able to take what we would call the low-hanging fruit and knock some of that stuff off during that shutdown. So some of the things that happened during this shutdown may not have necessarily been bad things.
Oh, no, I think that, let's face it, nobody has really tried to recognize, until now, I believe, nobody's tried to recognize the importance of the debt that we've got, $38 trillion. And by the way, see, Elon Musk signed a new contract or a new whatever package. Now he's worth $1 trillion.
They gave him $1 trillion wage package. He's the highest paid man on the face of the earth.
Unbelievable.
And rightly so, I think, for what he's done.
And I do too. I mean, I got a first-hand look at some of the stuff that he was doing the last couple of days over at the Space Center. Mm-hmm. Okay. And I mean, he's done some unbelievable things just in the fact that I don't want to stick on this a lot, but the fact that he said we can recycle these rockets. The government would have never done that.
That's efficient.
If he wouldn't have come along, they would have never done that because they send them up, throw them away, send them up, throw them away. And he came along and said, this is insane. We can do this.
Oh, we did. We see Sean Martz over here at Inside Auctioneers has many, many, many auctions where they have gone into county coffers, school boards, other places, outdated equipment, and you can get such deals on some barely used equipment. I've heard stories in the schools. There are rooms full of old, very usable equipment, but they got a grant to get new equipment, and they don't know what to do with this. So finally, they just surplus it out. Mm-hmm. So yes, the government's used to use and throw away because their money keeps coming, whether they do a good job or not.
Right.
We must pay our taxes. So, but I think in this shutdown under President Trump. And he has been able to begin to trim things back. And we've talked about this, but as this election cycle comes up, I am hoping to see more business-type people elected to the government to begin to run it in a much more efficient way. Last week, I had this guy on who is he is the CEO of MAGA Beer, okay? And his name is Joey Fratto. And Joe, I did a 40-minute interview in 20 minutes because he talks fast, man. He's a fast talker. But he is going to be running for Byron Donald's old congressional seat.
Okay.
He tried to unseat Mario Diaz-Balart down in Miami, and anytime you try to unseat an incumbent, that's a task. That's a task right there. But he was not successful. So now he's moved over to Naples, and he's going to go after the seat that Byron Donalds had. But I think it's going to be, we need to get more business people in, because right here in Avon Park, we've seen what Garrett Anderson has tried to do and for whatever it is, we seem to be on the up cycle. There's a new Latin restaurant that's opened up. This new Charlie Faye's. The Charlie Faye's Depot is opened up in the old Depot restaurant. It's down home good cooking. You got the Pour, P-O-U-R, Poorhouse and Barley's Hideaway, which is a pizza joint with beer and wine there. It's a craft beer and wine place, and new places are opening up all the time. And there's a new gift shop going to be opening up downtown. So I'm really glad to see what business people can do to keep us in the American way of having small businesses. In fact, Small Business Saturdays coming up. There's a whole litany of things now. You have there's right after there's Thanksgiving, and there's Black Friday. And then after Black Friday, there's Small Business Saturday, and then there's Cyber Monday. They want you to buy stuff online. So they've lined up these little special days for consuming all in a row. And Small Business Saturday is a good time for you to go downtown and try some of these mom and pop shops.
I've seen that what was I going to say now? I was talking about whatever it was, I lost it.
Yeah, okay.
So,
well, I just think that bringing business people into government and undoing I've been in Highlands County since 1986, and I have watched different iterations of the Highlands County Commission and city councils, for that matter, trying to grow themselves. Highlands County wants to be a bigger county. They want to grow the county. They want to have higher taxes. My taxes this year have been the highest they've ever been. Okay, and you have 5 people up there who have R's after their name, but most of them don't act anything like R's at all. And you've seen City of Sebring doing the same thing. City of Avon Park, under a different council, grew the size of the city. The city limits extend almost to the county line, and as far south as the hospital down there. I mean, Avon Park is the Los Angeles of Highlands County. I mean,
right.
the city limits just keep on growing, and so these governments want to continue to grow themselves. And it's nice to see people getting in saying, you know what? We need smaller government. We don't need larger government. In fact, that's what a republic is supposed to be about. So I'm the shutdown, to kind of come full circle on this. The shutdown has allowed, I keep on calling him Reagan, has allowed Donald Trump to begin to cut back on government, and he's going to hand over the reins to whoever comes next. If you were going to take if you're going to take a poll today, it'd probably be J.D. Vance. But whoever comes next, and I hope whoever comes next keeps Donald Trump on retainer and begins to look for people like the Elon Musks, the Dojas of the world, to continue the process of bringing America back to being a hub of industry, a hub of innovation, the kind of America that I grew up in the 50s, So, and we talked yesterday, I wanted to get back to this because we were talking about the Mondami effect and the buying of houses. And I think that there's something coming that people don't really realize, is that I am of a generation. There's some people coming after me they call the boomers. After the baby boom, after the war, people came home and made babies, and they made not quite as many as your grandparents, but they made babies, and there's a bunch of us. But when we didn't make as many babies, okay? No. And so there is a population drop coming after us. It kind of reminds me of Sebring. About 300 days out of the year doesn't really need a lot of hotel rooms. When race week comes, they're staying 50 miles away because there's just not enough rooms. Right. Okay. And so, but right after the races are over, things go vacant again. So I'm worried about all this, the building of these houses and things, because there arguably won't be the same kind of people. Because when I was growing up, you were supposed to get married in your 20s and have kids. You know, the mom would be saying, when am I going to see a grandbaby? When am I going to see a grandbaby? Now, they don't get married until they're 30, maybe they're mid-30s, and they don't have nearly as many children. I'm not sure that I don't think there's a replacement population going on now.
Yeah. I've got 4 grandsons. Between the 4 grandsons, 2 are not married. There's only 2 great-grandchildren and 1 I've only got 3 great-grandchildren out of 4 grandsons. Okay. So that tells you how far down the scale. And this is really a problem, because when your society produces less than 2 children per couple, you're eventually going to go away.
That's your replacement.
You're going to disappear.
Yes.
All right. Your heritage is going to be gone, and so on. Conversely, if we take a look at the incoming people from foreign countries, and this country has been inundated with foreign people, especially under the Biden administration, they proliferate at a much larger rate than the Americans.
Absolutely.
And so on. So you're going to see over time, if that doesn't change, if somehow, and I know people say, well, I can't afford children. Well, if you honestly can't afford children, then it's probably not a good idea to have some, because we've seen what's happened when people that cannot afford to have children over and over and over, and then live off the government.
Well,
that problem is there.
If you wait until you can afford them, you'll never have them.
I know. I agree. And I look back now, and I kind of say to myself, John, why didn't you have 4 or 5 children?
Yeah.
Okay. I question myself on why I didn't do that, but I think I was like everybody else today. I looked at it and I said, when I started working for my first job in a rubber plant, I made $3.50 an hour. Well, and
you bought a house.
And I bought a house, but it's pretty difficult to say, can I bring another mouth into the house to feed and be responsible for? And so we had 2. Luckily, we had a boy and a girl, and we kind of said, okay, maybe that's it, right? But as I reflect back on it now, I really kind of wish I would have had 3 or 4.
Well, it's just like your job load will expand to match the amount of time that you have available. And there's no one can tell you that better than somebody who's retired, because I have yet to run into somebody who's retired who hasn't said, I'm busier now than I was when I was working.
That's true.
That's
true.
And so I think that your ability to produce and the ability to take care of children will increase as you have the kids. I mean, necessity breeds imagination to get things accomplished. But it's not only in America. China is having the same problem.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of countries that are not getting the same, and there are some people who would argue that those who got the thing during the COVID are really not reproducing, and that is really reducing the population. And there are people that are happy about that. There are people who really want to reduce the world's population and have just a few people on the earth to service the people who are the bosses of the earth.
Well, that's part of it. And there are companies, businesses, and individuals that really do not want to see the population grow at all.
That's right.
At all. I mean, if you remember going back to Bill Gates and his infamous thing, he wanted to eliminate 1 billion people from across the world in the way of population. So because he said, now he seems to be singing a little different tune, but I wouldn't trust anything he says anymore.
No, okay? Don't, to quote Rush Limbaugh, don't listen to what they say, watch what they do.
Right. Absolutely. So,
one thing I want to switch gears here a little bit, because what people want us to address more local issues. So, okay, fine. One thing that came out, I saw the headline. I didn't get the article out of the paper. You read the article in the paper, but it's about upgrading Max Long to become the sports hub. Let me get your take on it, and I'll tell you what I think.
When you take and read the story, it was in the article, in the paper a couple days ago. All right, it said that the city of Sebring, all right, is planning on spending through a couple of operations called Synergy Sports about the Max Long project, which is up near the high school. All right, and it was supposed to be a multifunctional sports field situation, if you will. They are planning on spending somewhere between $8 and $10 million to upgrade it so that they will be able to bring in what they're saying is much larger crowds, many more teams to have these big tournaments, whether softball, baseball, soccer, whatever it is. But they want to spend $8 to $10 million to upgrade it and then start bringing in these huge, what they're saying are huge sport tournaments that will generate income. When you look at what they're talking about, they're saying all turf infields. There's another option to fully turf all fields, upgrade the sound system, infrastructure, Wi-Fi, etc., new scoreboard, batting cages and site amenities, and new parking lot. All right, so you've got that going on. And they're saying that the study shows an estimated 90,000 local visitors annually and estimated 70,000 hotel room nights annually. Once this new upgrade to the facilities is complete. So they're looking at it like it's going to be a financial success, and we'll see what happens, but that's a lot of money. I don't know what it cost to build it to begin with, but $8 to $10 million is a lot of money.
Okay, Sherman, let's get in the Wayback Machine here and go back to, and I wish my friend Tom Macklin was here to walk us through this, but there was a situation where the school board disallowed seniors from using the school's baseball fields to play softball. And so there was a big to-do going on, and they went round and round, and with the help of the YMCA, Dee McDonald and that whole group, they decided finally that, you know what, instead of building little ball fields all around for all the seniors to play on, what we're going to do is we're going to build a sports complex, and we're going to find a place to build this multi-million-dollar sports complex that will bring in hundreds of teams and tournaments, and will make Highlands County the draw. It will be the showcase. It'll be the showcase of Central Florida to play ball. And Rocky, can't remember, his name will come to me. The guy who was in charge of it. Okay, it came in late. It came in over budget, but they built it. And where did they build it? They said, you know what? What we'll do is we will put it in an economically disadvantaged area so that will be a way for the people in this economically disadvantaged area to leverage this and help through their businesses and help with their communities. And it will cause them, it'll be a renaissance practically. Okay. Well, it has never even paid half. I think one time maybe half, but it has never even really actually paid half of what it costs to maintain it. And when I questioned then County Administrator Carl Kuhl about why they didn't put it around, if you wanted to help the seniors, why didn't you put it in one at Sun and Lake and one at Avon Park and one in Lake Placid and one out in Spring Lake? I mean, put them around where the seniors live. Mm-hmm. So arguably they wouldn't have to drive all the way in to, right. Used to, you could drive straight through on Martin Luther King. We can't, they sealed it off. So you have to go up Lemon Street and back and around to get back up in there. But, instead of driving all that long way to get there, they'd have money. Say, well, Barry, you don't understand. We're going to have all these tournaments. Well, turns out that they had to use tourist tax to underwrite these tournaments to get the tournaments to come. Mm-hmm. The people who were coming to Aunt Nellie's funeral here and paying the heads and beds tax, that money was going to pay for banquets for these kids, was going to pay for the umpires for these kids, was going to facilitate these tournaments. And I remember, who was it? One of the Highlands Today reporters, Gary Pennell, was it Pennell? Anyway, he went up and he did a survey, and I somewhere in the bottom of a plastic tub I have this article where he went and was talking to people, and he said, well, when you come here, do you eat in the restaurants? Do you go buy your gasoline here? Do you visit any? Do you go out to the raceway or the Children's Museum or Highlands Hammock State Park? I said, no. We come, we watch we watch the games, and when our team gets eliminated, we leave. Okay, and I knew a guy who was a manager of a local hotel, and it was very common for these kids for the parents to go to the grocery mart and buy a loaf of bread and a pound of bologna and a bottle of mustard and make their own sandwiches in their rooms. They didn't go to the restaurants. In fact, at one time as a news reporter, I waited for 3 weeks, and after a big tournament was in town, I called some of the places, arguably, that I called the cheap gas stations. I called the fast food restaurants. I called the pizza places and asked them, I said, how was this weekend compared to last weekend? They said, what do you mean? I said, well, were you down this weekend from last weekend? They go, no. Why? Well, I said there was this big ball tournament in town. And so I would have assumed that you would have seen some kind of a bump last week, and then this week it would be down. I'm not asking for specific numbers, but you would see it would be down. And they, to the person, I talked to some managers, I talked to some line people, no idea what I was talking about. And the head of the tourism development committee, Jim, man, don't get old. I can't remember any of these names anymore. Anyway, he was furious with these. Well, you're never going to find out anything that way. I said, what? Face-to-face interviews? Calling people and asking. What they said was going to happen did not happen. This ball field that they put up as a big tourist attraction has gone to absolutely nothing. They get a couple of tournaments here, and now they're telling me, oh, well, Barry, it's too small. It's too small. But when they put it up, they were going to have, and the nights that they didn't have baseball out there, they were going to have a giant screen and show movies out there. And they were going to bring people out there. And I was out there. My granddaughter was involved in a cheer squad for a while that would practice out there. And they all practiced on they have AstroTurf outside of it. Didn't cost them a dime. You and I, through our property taxes, were paying for that, okay? Because they weren't paying a dime to use it, okay? So there were some peewee football guys out there, little kids playing, some half field playing. But this whole, and a dear friend of mine, I'll call his name, Mike Berry, used to call it the Highlands County Taxpayer Sportatorium, and which I started referring it to, and I was not on their Christmas card list, but it's true, So now you look at this article about improving Max Long Field for exactly the same thing. It just seems to me they waited a generation to spring this, and they're trying to spend their tourist tax money is what they're trying to do, and they're looking for something to do. So they're going to try this, and I will tell you, doing the same, is this like socialism? Well, they didn't do it right this first time, so now we're going to do it right. So I look at this, and I think someone at the newspaper, or maybe it's time for me to go delve into this sports complex and take a deep look at how much did it cost. I don't think it's paid for it hasn't paid for its own maintenance much. It's paying for itself. This thing. And I think there's a larger agenda attached to this too.
Well, this is what they're advocating. This is what they want to do, and it sounds like they're going to move ahead because they've already got the, if you will, the contractors underway. The people that are trying to verify what's going to work. Like I said, Casey Hart, Ellen Verlander of Airstream Ventures, and Jason Baudry of Synergy Sports. So there's two groups that they're working with.
They're all intertwined with Visit Sebring.
Right. Yeah. And so on. So that's where it's at. But it's, again, to me, in a smaller community like Highlands County, $8 to $10 million is a pretty good chunk of money.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll see where they go with this. But it sounds certainly like they're moving forward, and it's going to be essentially a done deal.
Well, yeah, they're going to move forward because they can hear the cash register ring. Okay, and I don't live in Sebring, so it's up to them what they do with their money. I don't pay the tourist tax, so it's not my money. But I'm watching this, and I think that there's even a larger, and this is why the city council in Sebring, I think, my personal opinion is they've been dragging their feet on this turning the municipal golf course over to Harder Hall. They see this as part of a larger program where Max Long is only the start of it. They want to take, I think, that golf course and turn it into pickleball courts and frisbee golf and a splash, but whatever, making another big recreation center just down the road from Max Long. I think that's why they're dragging their feet on this, because the Blackmans have a lot of money, but you're talking about tax dollars here. The Tourist Development Commission, that money, every time they just had a race out at Sebring this past weekend. The World Racing League is out there. They have a bunch of races that come out there, and people come and pay the tourist tax regardless of what's going on with the ball fields. So just like we talked yesterday, the government money keeps flowing in. So I think that there's more to this than meets the eye. That's my personal opinion.
Well, it very well could be, and I guess as time goes on, we're going to get to see exactly what's going to happen with this. But it definitely, by reading this article and them talking to and evidently contracted with or listening to a couple of these sports organizations, they're going to proceed. They're going to go ahead. And what will it do if they do this renovations? And I don't know how long the time is for this to take place, whether it would be something they could do in a year or whatever to make these renovations and improvements. We'll see what happens when this thing has been in operation for, let's say, another 10 years down the road.
Well, somebody ought to take a look at the sport, the Highlands County Sports Complex, and take a look at that, and which is 10 years down the road. And who remembers the fabled BMX bike track that they spent millions of dollars on? Well, actually, no one knows how much, because no records were ever kept. No one knows how much money they spent on the BMX bike track out there at the Borrow Pit off 17th. I like to say millions of dollars, and they say, "Oh, Barry, it wasn't that much." I said, "Well, prove me wrong." Well, they can't. They would, as I understand it, they would send out crews from the landfill with the dirt movers to move and make this downhill race. So it wasn't really a BMX track. It was kind of like Pikes Peak in reverse. It would be like if you raced down Pikes Peak instead of up Pikes Peak. But and the first, I'll never forget. My buddy David Greenslade broke his arm when they had a celebrity. Let's use the word race. It really is. They had a celebrity race, and David wiped out on his bike and broke his arm. They had to use a flag thing to brace his arm. Splint. Thank you. Yeah. Splint his arm. Anyway, and that thing now is gone. It's a shooting range. It's a shooting range down there. It just came apart. In fact, when I worked for the paper, I wrote an article called "Tale of Two Tracks," and I talked about with a BMX track, and then I talked about the Nassgrass lawnmower racing track, which was built by enthusiasts who did it on a capitalist point of view, volunteers, and putting it together, which was wildly successful until they got thrown out of the airport and they moved down to Florida Flywheelers Park, which arguably is a better facility, but it's also a lot harder to find. Right. Right. And when they got thrown out of that, but I'll tell you that this whole thing has a very peculiar aroma to, and when you've been around and watched it long enough and seen how things work, they've got the newspaper Foursquare behind them because they've got these great plans, but they need to look at what was done in the past. It's as the girl on the Ritz Crackers used to say, "Don't you get it? It's the same. It's just different." Different place, same plan. And I will tell you that they don't have the room and the facilities down there to match what they are going up against on the coast.
Well, if I had the money, and I don't, but if I did, I would propose building a dirt track in Highlands County
No,
for
you're
racing.
talking about, racing dirt track.
Racing dirt track, yes, and so on. So it would, you could either win or lose with that, but that's what I would do with
Yeah,
the money
and the lawnmower racers they're not even in Highlands County anymore.
Right.
They're literally in Polk County now.
Yes, yep.
And you've been out there, haven't you?
Not the new
John.
track. No, I have not.
It
not
is,
gotten there yet.
if you like dirt track racing, you will, and they always race the second Saturday of the month. So at the time of this recording, it's coming up. I'll talk to Wes. We need to get you. In fact, I'll get you a cigar, and we'll get you in one of those mowers, and you can run it around for a while.
There
Okay?
you go. There you go.
If you promise not to wreck,
Well, one never knows.
we'll get you on one of the kids' mowers.
There
Okay?
you go. Yeah, one of those 1 horsepower things. Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's so it's this whole thing. We'll see how it goes, but I'm feeling more and more like Limbaugh all the time. He wrote a whole book said, "See, I told you so."
Well, it's interesting. I mean, there's been stories on this thing off and on for as long as I can remember, and so this is the saga of that sports complex. Not that I would not want to not see it successful. I would love it if they got 500 tournaments out there a year and brought in, $5 million and all that good stuff, except that the history of it says that I don't know whether that can happen. I really don't know if it can happen. So, they're to me, that should be under the microscope because of all the things that have taken place and all the comments that have been said over the last number of years about that complex. And but it's really too bad because you would like to see something become very successful, especially there needs to be, and one of the things that, this is a small community, but there's, I know if you're a golfer, if you're a fisherman, okay, you're good to go. But if you're not one of those and you're interested in something else, there's really not anything right here. And so that's the thing that I've seen. And that's the unfortunate part of it because there are people that, maybe don't golf, maybe don't fish, would like to have some other opportunity for recreation.
Well, it just occurs to me, there were these guys, that got together and had seen Rich Yeager and Tom Macklin and Joe Gillians and Brian Benton and his wife Susan, not the sheriff, and some of these others who wanted to have who wanted to go lawnmower racing, but they didn't have a facility.
Right.
So they went to the city of Avon Park, and at the furthest northwest corner of the airport was what used to be a landfill. And they said, look, rent us this for $1 a year, okay, because that was the lowest. Rent us for $1 a year. Let us clear it. We'll clear it. We'll take care of it. We'll make a track. And they made a tri-oval, and at the time they had a drag racing track too. And they put it together, and they said, "We'll go ahead and make this, and just let us go ahead, and do this, okay? Just let us go ahead and do this." And Gordon Marshall and the city and the city council said, "Okay, yeah, we'll do this." And so they went out, and over the course of the years, they got the national organization to help them out. They went and through their own pluck and luck, built themselves a track out there, and they went racing the second. And I think it's a pretty aggressive to race the second Saturday of every month, but they did. They got rained out a few times, but they tried to race during the winter months, and they would bring people in from all over everywhere. There were guys who would haul down as far away as Pensacola to come down and race. They had people come in and at first they were kind of trepidation. Well, the new was there. They had the kind of the feeding frenzy, but they began to develop fans, and it was a great pull. It was a great It was a great tourist attraction because it was the first for-purpose lawnmower racing facility in the United States, and they got some. They found there was I think it was over in Bradenton. It was over in Bradenton. They were getting rid of some old softball stands. And so these guys got together, and of course, they're mechanics, they're tradespeople. They went out and drove over, and they said, if you want them, you can have them. They drove over, they picked up the stands, they brought them back, and they got sponsorship from GeoDev, it's George Hall and Devil Donaldson, that have a financial organization here that also are now landlords. They run a lot of the laundromats around here, and GeoDev bought them a bunch of 2x4s, or a bunch of planks, and they put them on these stands, and they became the GeoDev stands. And the GeoDev stands where people could sit.
Okay.
And they had a food truck come out there. And set up, and they had volunteers take the tickets, and it was a thriving organization. It went through a couple of different sanctioning bodies, but it was a thriving organization out there because it was run by enthusiasts. It was run by people who wanted to do it. And so if there are kids out here that want to have some kind of entertainment, they probably can go ahead and do this. I mean, we already see that these how do I describe these people? People our age who want to play pickleball use tennis courts and use tennis courts to do the kind of things that they want to do. If there are kids that want to have some kind of entertainment, they can set them up themselves. Let's take back in the 1990s, paintball was all the rage, where you would set up obstacles and go wear a helmet with a visor so you didn't put your eye out, kid. And they would shoot each other with paintball guns. So I mean, if there are kids that want to do things, I think that there's ample opportunity, but they kind of show their own initiative to do that kind of thing, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's got to happen. But again, there has to be somebody that's willing to put forth the time, effort, money to establish any of these sporting events or any kind of recreational thing. And it's almost exclusively, I won't say it all the time, because we can see here this is more a government program.
It's exactly a government program
than it is a individual or consortium of individuals that want to go ahead and proceed to do something. So you're right. The lawnmower racing was a situation where it was individuals got together with a plan and made that plan work.
Yeah, it was adults that did that, and if kids want to be able to do that, they should be able to go ahead and do that. And I would like to know if there are a bunch of kids that want to get together and do something. I mean, some kind of sports or some kind of thing that they think would be very cool. I'd like to know what that is. Mm-hmm. And because there are people who would be very happy to help. For instance, back in the early 2000s, I think it was the early 2000s, late 1990s maybe, there was this huge push for frisbee golf. And they want, and I thought that was about the stupidest thing I ever heard in my entire life. And I had a guy call. He was a frisbee golf maven. He really wanted to have this. So they built this thing, and you, instead of hitting the ball, you take a frisbee and throw it, mm-hmm. and then instead of putting, you flip it and it ends up in this little basket, and
mm-hmm.
that's
yep.
your hole.
Yep.
And so they put one in by the YMCA. I would really like to know the status of the frisbee golf. Mm-hmm. In fact, I'm going to make a note to myself to check that and find out what that is and what's going on there. Anyway,
so that, I mean, that's okay when you're talking about things that are going to be directed toward youngsters, children. Okay, but again, on the older side of things, recreation for, yes, I know, John, there's all kinds of golfing, there's all kinds of fishing. Yes, I understand it, but not everybody's into golf and fish.
That's right.
All right, so is there any other kind of recreational thing? And there's not a whole lot I don't think, that is pegged towards older people.
I think most of these kids get their recreation in a little square that's about 3 by 6. Okay, we call them a smartphone. That they're getting neck injuries from staring into the screen for so long.
Well, somebody told me a long time ago with arthritis in my hands, they said that you're going to be shocked as these young kids come along with arthritis in their hands.
Oh yeah,
and they're in their 20s because they're constantly tapping on that phone with their fingers. Okay, much faster than I could ever think of doing, but that's what they do. I do the old hunt and peck method. All right,
yeah,
I get there, but it takes me twice as long as it does some youngster, and so on. So that's one of the downsides of what's going to happen, I think, over time.
One thing I'd like to get to before the end of the program is that Avon Park has a new city manager.
Okay.
Has an interim city manager, a guy by the name of Jason Atkinson, who worked as the public works director in Avon Park for a while, left and went down to Fort Pierce and was named by a 3-2 vote Monday night. There are some people, Bernice Taylor, who obviously does not like this guy at all. I would say if you watch the city council meeting, I'll just tell you this, is that she was very, very, very pointed in her problems with Mr. Atkinson. He had been written up for some things that he said didn't happen. I know how that is. I have been accused of things that I never did, but sometimes it didn't matter. It depends on who's accusing you of what. But at any rate, he is now going to be in for roughly 4 months. But he is one of 5 people who have applied for the job on a full-time basis. Mm-hmm. There was no proviso that if you took this job, you couldn't go after it. I think when they had previously asked David Flowers to do it, the idea was, we only need you until we name somebody, and then after that, you can go back into private life. And he was good with that. David, old Avon Park boy, his dad was a fire chief of some renown, and so he just wants things to go well in the city of Charm. Not everybody liked the idea. I think it was Shelley McCure floated out the idea that it could be kind of run by these 4 department heads, could run the city until they named a new city manager. City Attorney Gerald Bureau said, well, yeah, that sounds really good, except that's not what your charter says. And Mr. Bureau and former Mayor Tom Macklin came up and reminded these people what their charter says. I'm not at all sure that all of the people at the dais have read and understand the city charter, but it's fortunate they have people who do to explain it to them. So after some contentious back and forth, they decided to put Atkinson in, because as I understand it, that was the last meeting. That was a motor scooter on the sidewalk. That was the last meeting for Dr. Danielle Kelly as the city manager of Avon Park. So they have to have somebody in there. I mean, they've gotten down to that. And as I've said before, if you're a leader, if you're a city council person, or the mayor or city manager, whatever, if you're a leader, when you see a problem, you better be working on solving it. And the only one that I saw that had spent any time at all reaching out and trying to get the people was Garrett Anderson. I could be wrong about that. And some other, because I know that I was asked about the location of other people who had done municipal management in the past, and they were reached out. And as Senator John Kennedy said recently, the short answer was no. The long answer is hell no. Mm-hmm. Yes. So this seemed, and Atkinson was there, and I don't know this guy, and his tenure with the city of Avon Park was during the roughly 1 year or so that I had left the radio station. I wasn't really following municipal government. I wasn't doing that. I was trying to, get my feet back up under me after 40 plus years of, well, actually 50 years of being a news director and doing that kind of stuff. I was just taking some time off. So I don't know anything about his story. If I just saw this guy for the first time, he seems to be very amenable. Mm-hmm. He seems to want to get along. Some of the people on council really don't like him at all. And so he said, he said he didn't want to have an adversarial relationship. And so we'll see how this goes, because we saw what happens when you have an adversarial relationship with people in government under Donald Trump. Okay? We saw how they just continue to come after you. So, in fact, we even see that with the mayor of Avon Park, with Garrett Anderson. Recently, they've just continued to come after him. So we'll see how this plays out. But for better or for worse, Jason Atkinson is the interim city manager of Avon Park.
That sounds like that sounds like a job where you're under a cloud of suspicion right from the first day.
Oh, yeah.
And that, to me, would be a very, very hard environment to be successful. Because no matter how good a job you do, if somebody doesn't like you because they don't like you for no other really fathomable reason, your life is going to be miserable. I mean, good luck to him. I hope he's successful. But if that's the circumstances that which he's being hired, that's going to be a hard hill to climb.
Well, it was easy to see that Donald Trump, from the time he went down the escalator, was accused of many things to which the accusers could not actually bring any evidence of proof. Like there was that one gal that said that he had reached through the seat to grope her. And of course, Donald Trump has the world's greatest investigative team, which is every MAGA guy in the United States, or every MAGA person. And they showed a picture of the interior of the plane at that time, and there was a big piece of plate steel. And he said, if he can reach his hand through there, God love him. He couldn't. And all of a sudden, those charges went away. And so it's easy to say, so and so said this to me, or said that to me, or they did this. Which and more than once I've had people say, when you said so and so, I said, well, I never said. Well, that's what I heard. Well, yeah, well, you may have heard that, but I never said that. And you'd ask them, well, show me. Show me the audio where I said that.
Right.
Or they'll take it out of context. And by the way, did you see where that guy from the BBC had to resign for doctoring the Trump tapes?
Yes.
Yes.
And on top of that, we didn't mention it, I don't think yet, but that the so-called bomber that was going to set off the bomb in front of the Republican and Democrat headquarters in D.C., turns out, after investigation, I know Dan Bongino was on this right from the very beginning, was one of the female Capitol Hill police.
She is accused of being that,
yes.
That it was an inside job. But as this unfolds, we know, first of all, there were no FBI agents in there at all. Now we find out there was at least 275 FBI operatives in there, some who were encouraging people to break the law because they have the video of it.
Right.
And so as you go and unpack this looks more and more and more like a setup.
Well, I'll tell you, I would really love to hear the true story of Ray Epps. Ray Epps is this person that's sitting out there in Never Never Land, who was prime example of someone trying to get people into the Capitol, very boisterous, getting people into the Capitol, and yet he disappeared. He was never charged, like all the J6 people, never charged. And yet nothing's ever happened. And I just would love to see the real story on Ray Epps, what he did, why he did it, why was he not charged, and why was he not part of this?
Well, Donald, under the Trump administration, those things are slowly but surely being unpacked.
I hope so.
And the thing is that the mainstream media is every day losing more people to podcasts, losing more people to, and a lot of times you have to go in and research, did this really happen? And the answer is, well, no, that didn't really happen. So you have to, but it's good for us because it requires us now when we see something, and I learned the hard way. I repeated something that was not true, okay? And it sounded true to me that AOC was worth $29 million, but I came to find out that was a Democrat troll site that puts up false information, and I was not as prudent. So now I check everything, and what I found actually is that now not only is she not worth $29 million, the last thing that I saw that she was valued at $75,000, which I think is even more suspect, as to what she's getting paid and all the things that are going on. So you have to look into this stuff all yourself to make sure it's correct.
Well, I have no doubt that she is collecting mega money for a run against Shumer as the senator from New York. There's no doubt the money's going to be, if it's not flowing in already, which I believe it is, it's going to be flowing in buckets load just to try and unseat him. Because now, especially with this, if you read between the lines on what they did with this continuing resolution this time, that if it looks at all like the Democrats, gave in, then she's surely going to run against him, and she'll win. She will win in New York. As much damage as she has done to her community when she stopped that Amazon distribution center that was going to hire 20-some thousand people and so on, and yet nothing ever happened because of that and so on. So if she can get away with that kind of stuff, then she can get away with almost anything. Yeah,
well, we saw that with Nancy Pelosi, standing in front of her two giant Sub-Zero refrigerators, eating $12 a quart ice cream, and then she gets elected. She gets elected in one of the poorest districts around. It's sad.
No, it is. It's very sad that people can get away with this kind of thing, and it tells you how gullible people are, though. How gullible people are. They don't read between the lines. But like I said earlier, I for years kept saying, I don't understand how they keep getting reelected. Now I do. Now I understand the game plan, and that is you get rid of all the people that have something going with them for themselves. They're a self-thinker, self-motivator, self-made person and whatnot. And what's left are the people that want the handouts, and those are the ones that vote you in every time. Every time.
Well, we're out of time again for the day, but John, I appreciate you so much. You've been listening to the latest edition of the Barry Foster Show, recorded at the Ridge Flora Studios in the City of Charm, beautiful downtown Avon Park. Any thoughts, ideas, or suggestions for the program, put it in the comments below, or you can drop us an email at thebarryfostershow@gmail.com. Check out our YouTube page and like and subscribe, and please join our pages at The Barry Foster Show on Facebook and Instagram as well. As we continue to look for truth, justice, and the American way, Barry Foster and John Larson, and we'll see you next time.